Joel Goldsmith discovered something profound that forever changed the landscape of spiritual healing. He realized that true healing isn't about fixing what appears broken. It's about recognizing what was never actually broken in the first place. This revolutionary understanding transformed not just his own life, but the lives of thousands who learned his extraordinary secret. The medical establishment couldn't explain Joel's miraculous healings that defied every known law of medicine and science. Terminal cancer disappeared without treatment. Severe mental illness vanished overnight. Desperate financial lack transformed into abundant prosperity. Yet Joel consistently insisted that he personally did nothing to create these miracles. He simply awakened to a fundamental truth that exists within every single human being on this planet, patiently waiting to be discovered and activated. You possess this exact same healing power operating within your consciousness right now, at this very moment. It's not some special gift reserved only for mystics, saints, or chosen people. This healing ability is your absolute birthright as a spiritual being temporarily expressing through human form. Joel's proven method reveals precisely how to access and activate what you've always possessed, but never knew how to use consistently, powerfully, and with complete confidence in any situation you face. In 1928, Joel faced his own devastating health crisis that every doctor declared completely hopeless and beyond medical intervention. Traditional medicine had utterly failed him, leaving him desperate and facing what appeared to be certain death. Yet in this darkest moment, he turned to spiritual healing, not as some desperate last resort, but as his first real solution. Through pure spiritual realization and recognition, Joel experienced what can only be described as complete and total healing that defied every single medical prediction and prognosis. This wasn't gradual improvement over months or years. This wasn't partial recovery with ongoing limitations. This was instantaneous, complete, miraculous transformation. The key wasn't traditional prayer as most religious people understand and practice it. It wasn't positive thinking, visualization techniques, or mental affirmations. It was something far more powerful, immediate, and transformative than any human method could ever produce. Joel discovered the secret that changes everything about how healing actually works. Joel uncovered that authentic healing happens when you completely shift from human effort and struggle to spiritual recognition and acceptance. Instead of trying to heal, fix, or change anything through personal will, you simply recognize the spiritual perfection that already exists as absolute truth, regardless of any contrary appearances that seem so real and convincing. The profound secret Joel discovered isn't found in any medical textbook, healing manual, or traditional religious training. It's not taught in churches, medical schools, or conventional healing institutions anywhere in the world. It's the life-changing understanding that there's only one power operating throughout the entire universe, and that power is eternally whole, perfect, and complete. Everything else that appears as disease, lack, limitation, or suffering is nothing more than human misconception, misperception, and misunderstanding of spiritual reality. These appearances seem real to human perception, but they have no actual substance or power when seen from the perspective of spiritual truth and recognition. When Joel worked with someone seeking healing, he never focused on their problem, disease, or limitation. He didn't pray for their healing or try to change their condition through mental effort. Instead, he simply recognized their true spiritual identity as already absolutely perfect, whole, and complete in every possible way. This recognition of spiritual perfection dissolved the illusion of separation between the person and their inherent wholeness. This is precisely why Joel could facilitate healing for anyone who came to him. He consistently saw through every appearance of disease, limitation, or suffering to the underlying reality of eternal spiritual perfection that can never be touched by human conditions. Joel's revolutionary method works with absolute certainty because it addresses the actual root cause of all human suffering, the fundamental belief in separation from our divine source and true spiritual nature. Every problem, whether physical disease, mental distress, relationship conflict, or financial struggle, stems from temporarily forgetting our authentic spiritual identity and unlimited nature. True healing happens automatically when this memory of spiritual wholeness is completely restored through conscious recognition rather than human effort or struggle. The beauty and elegance of Joel's approach lies in its profound simplicity that anyone can understand and apply immediately without years of complicated study or development of special psychic abilities. You don't need extensive education, special talents, or unique spiritual gifts to practice Joel's method effectively. You need only the sincere willingness to see beyond temporary appearances to the eternal spiritual reality that underlies all human experience. This fundamental shift in perception becomes the unshakable foundation for lasting transformation in every area of life. This isn't about somehow becoming spiritual through practice or effort. You already are spiritual by your very nature and essence. It's about remembering and recognizing what you've only temporarily forgotten due to human conditioning. Joel's technique helps you recall your true identity as a perfect expression of infinite love, divine wisdom, and eternal wholeness that can never be diminished or destroyed by any human circumstance. Sarah had been confined to a wheelchair for 3 long, difficult years when she first discovered Joel's transformative teachings. Multiple doctors had examined her condition thoroughly and offered absolutely no hope for recovery or improvement. Her entire family had reluctantly accepted her physical limitation as permanent and irreversible, making necessary adjustments to accommodate what they believed would be her lifelong disability. Yet within just 6 weeks of consistently applying Joel's recognition principle with dedication and faith, Sarah took her first tentative but miraculous steps. Her healing didn't happen through desperate struggle, intense prayer, or any form of human effort or willpower. She simply learned to recognize her inherent spiritual wholeness regardless of the physical appearances that seemed so convincing and real. Every single day, Sarah spent quiet, peaceful moments acknowledging and recognizing her perfect spiritual identity, allowing this recognition to completely fill her consciousness with truth rather than fear. She stopped identifying herself as a disabled person and began seeing herself as a whole, perfect spiritual being temporarily expressing through physical form that was being transformed. The transformation began subtly at first. Increased energy levels, dramatically improved sleep, elevated mood, and growing sense of inner peace and confidence. Then came the breakthrough moment that shocked her family and medical team. Her legs gradually regained full strength not through any medical intervention, surgery, or treatment, but through the incredible power of spiritual recognition transforming her entire experience of physical embodiment and possibility. Michael's successful business was rapidly failing after 15 prosperous years of steady growth and profitability. Bankruptcy seemed not just possible but inevitable within months. The overwhelming stress had completely destroyed his health and most of his important relationships. Every traditional business strategy and conventional approach he tried simply wasn't working to reverse the devastating downward spiral. Then Michael discovered Joel's life-changing principle, that spiritual recognition has the power to transform every single area of human experience, including business and financial circumstances. Instead of continuing to fight against his deteriorating circumstances through more human effort and struggle, Michael learned to recognize the spiritual source of all supply, abundance, and prosperity. He completely stopped seeing himself as a desperate, struggling businessman facing failure and ruin. Instead, he began consistently acknowledging his true identity as a perfect expression of infinite abundance, divine wisdom, and unlimited creative potential. This wasn't positive thinking or self-hypnosis. It was recognition of spiritual truth about his authentic nature and unlimited resources. Within just 4 months of dedicated practice, Michael's business situation completely turned around in ways that amazed everyone who knew his story. Unexpected opportunities appeared from sources he never could have imagined or planned. His physical health improved dramatically. His damaged relationships healed naturally. This incredible transformation came not through increased human effort or new business strategies, but through consistently recognizing his spiritual wholeness and unlimited nature as absolute truth. Linda had struggled with severe, debilitating depression for over a decade that affected every aspect of her daily life and relationships. Various medications provided only temporary relief, but never addressed the deep underlying emptiness and despair she felt constantly. Years of therapy helped her understand her psychological patterns and childhood wounds, but couldn't lift the persistent darkness that clouded her experience. Joel's revolutionary approach offered something completely different from anything she had tried before. The recognition that her true spiritual identity was never actually touched, damaged, or affected by depression or any other human condition. Instead of trying to heal, fix, or change her mental and emotional state through effort, Linda learned to recognize the joy and peace that existed as her eternal spiritual essence. This wasn't denial of her current experience or pretending her depression didn't exist. It was seeing beyond the temporary appearance to the eternal spiritual reality of her true nature. Linda discovered that what she had accepted as her permanent identity was actually just a temporary experience covering her inherent spiritual wholeness like clouds covering the sun. The dramatic shift took approximately 3 months of consistent, dedicated practice and recognition. Linda's depression didn't gradually fade away over time. It dissolved completely as she recognized her inherent wholeness and spiritual perfection. She discovered that what she thought was her fixed identity was just a temporary experience that had absolutely no power over her true spiritual nature and unlimited potential for joy, peace, and fulfillment. Robert faced terminal cancer with doctors giving him only months to live and no possibility of recovery. Aggressive chemotherapy treatments had completely failed to stop the disease's progression. His medical team recommended only palliative care to manage pain until death. Family members from around the country gathered to say their final goodbyes to someone they loved but expected to lose very soon. Yet Robert chose to explore Joel's teaching about spiritual recognition as the true foundation for healing, rather than accepting the medical verdict as final truth. He learned to see beyond his devastating physical condition to his perfect, eternal spiritual reality that could never be touched by disease or death. This wasn't denial of his situation or false optimism. It was recognition of his true identity. Robert understood that he wasn't a physical body with a soul, but rather a spiritual being temporarily having a human experience that included this challenge. This fundamental shift in identity and self-perception became the crucial turning point in his entire healing journey. He stopped fighting the cancer and started recognizing spiritual wholeness as his true nature. 6 months later, to everyone's amazement, Robert's cancer was completely gone without any medical explanation. His doctors called it spontaneous remission and admitted they had no scientific understanding of what had occurred. Robert knew the truth. It was the incredible power of spiritual recognition manifesting as complete physical healing and restoration. If these transformation stories inspire you, like this video to help others find these teachings, subscribe for more Joel Goldsmith wisdom, and comment. What healing journey resonated most with you? Joel taught that the fundamental key to facilitating healing for others lies in completely releasing your personal will, human sympathy, and desire to help, allowing pure spiritual recognition to work through your consciousness without any interference from human concern or emotional involvement. You don't actually heal anyone through personal effort or ability. You simply recognize their spiritual perfection and allow that recognition to do the transformative work. This requires a complete shift from human sympathy and emotional reaction to clear spiritual recognition and spiritual understanding. Instead of feeling sorry for someone's condition or getting emotionally involved in their suffering, you learn to see through every appearance of disease, lack, or limitation to their underlying spiritual reality that remains forever perfect, whole, and complete. This isn't being cold, uncaring, or emotionally distant from human suffering. It's actually the most loving, helpful, and healing thing you can possibly do for another person. Human sympathy often reinforces the problem by acknowledging and accepting it as real. Spiritual recognition dissolves problems by seeing beyond appearances to truth. When you truly recognize someone's spiritual wholeness with complete conviction and clarity, they inevitably feel this recognition at the deepest level of their being. Your unwavering recognition becomes like a clear mirror reflecting their true spiritual nature back to them. This recognition often catalyzes their own awakening to their inherent perfection, unlimited potential, and capacity for complete healing and transformation in any area of their life. The healing consciousness that Joel developed and demonstrated throughout his ministry can be systematically cultivated through specific daily practices that anyone can learn and apply immediately. Begin each morning by taking quiet time to recognize your true spiritual identity before engaging in any worldly activities or concerns that might distract you from this fundamental truth about your nature. Acknowledge clearly that you are not a physical body that happens to have a soul, but rather an eternal spiritual being, temporarily expressing through physical form for this human experience. This recognition establishes the proper foundation for everything else you think, say, and do throughout your day, ensuring that you operate from spiritual consciousness rather than human limitation. Throughout each day, consistently practice seeing every person you encounter spiritually rather than just physically or personally. When someone appears sick, troubled, angry, or lacking in any way, silently recognize their spiritual perfection without trying to change them or their circumstances through human effort or concern. This isn't pretending their human problems don't exist. It's seeing beyond problems to spiritual solutions. End each day by consciously releasing all human concerns, worries, and problems to spiritual recognition and trust. Instead of lying awake worrying about tomorrow's challenges or replaying today's difficulties, recognize that your spiritual nature has infinite resources, wisdom, and solutions available for every situation. This consistent practice gradually builds the same healing consciousness that Joel embodied throughout his extraordinary ministry and teaching career. Joel discovered through years of practice and experience that authentic healing happens most powerfully in the profound silence that exists between thoughts, beyond mental activity and human reasoning. This isn't meditation as commonly taught in various spiritual traditions. It's active, conscious recognition of spiritual truth in moments of complete inner stillness and receptivity to divine revelation. These silent moments of spiritual recognition become incredibly powerful catalysts for transformation that often work more effectively than hours of prayer, study, or mental effort. In this sacred silence, human problems naturally dissolve into spiritual solutions without struggle, strain, or any form of personal effort or willpower. Practice entering this healing silence several times throughout each day, regardless of your circumstances or schedule. Simply pause whatever activity you're engaged in and spend a few moments recognizing the spiritual reality that underlies all appearances. Let this recognition fill your consciousness completely, crowding out fear, doubt, and human concern. The more consistently you practice this silent recognition, the more natural and automatic it becomes in your daily experience. Eventually, you learn to live continuously from this consciousness of spiritual recognition, rather than constantly reacting to human appearances and circumstances. This is exactly how Joel maintained his extraordinary healing ability throughout decades of ministry, travel, teaching, and dealing with all the normal human responsibilities and challenges that everyone faces. Joel's approach works with absolute effectiveness in any situation because it addresses the spiritual foundation that underlies all human experience, regardless of the specific form that challenges or problems might take. Whether you're dealing with health crises, relationship conflicts, financial struggles, career obstacles, or family difficulties, the fundamental principle remains exactly the same in every case. You simply recognize spiritual perfection and wholeness where problems appear to exist, rather than trying to change, fix, or improve human conditions through personal effort or willpower. This isn't positive thinking, affirmations, or visualization techniques. It's recognition of what is eternally true from a spiritual perspective, regardless of temporary appearances that seem so convincing to human perception. Positive thinking attempts to change conditions through mental effort and willpower. Spiritual recognition reveals that perfect conditions already exist when any situation is seen from the perspective of spiritual truth rather than human limitation. This recognition doesn't deny problems exist. It sees beyond them to solutions that are always available. Start applying this life-changing principle to your most pressing concern today, whatever that might be. Instead of trying to fix, change, or improve anything through human effort, practice consistently recognizing the spiritual perfection that underlies the situation. Allow this recognition to guide all your thoughts, decisions, and actions as you move forward, trusting completely that spiritual solutions will manifest through this recognition in perfect timing and ways. Many sincere people struggle with Joel's method because they unconsciously try to use spiritual recognition as a technique to get specific human results and outcomes. This completely reverses the actual process and makes it ineffective. True spiritual recognition isn't motivated by desire for particular outcomes. It's simply acknowledgement of spiritual truth because it's true, regardless of appearances or desired results. When you practice spiritual recognition specifically to heal your headache, improve your financial situation, fix your relationship problems, or achieve any other human goal, you're still operating from human consciousness that sees problems needing solutions. This approach treats spiritual recognition as just another human method or technique for getting what you want. Real spiritual recognition happens when you acknowledge spiritual perfection simply because it's the truth about every person and situation, not because you want to change anything or achieve specific results. This shift from seeking particular outcomes to recognizing eternal truth changes everything about how the principle actually works in your experience. Paradoxically, when you completely stop trying to use spiritual recognition for human purposes and personal goals, it becomes infinitely more powerful and effective in naturally transforming your human experience in ways that often exceed what you thought you wanted. The key is recognizing truth for its own sake, not as a means to an end, but as acknowledgement of what eternally exists, regardless of temporary appearances that seem to contradict it. Another common obstacle that prevents people from experiencing Joel's method effectively is expecting instant miraculous results similar to the most dramatic healing stories from his ministry. While such immediate transformations do occur and are completely possible, most transformation through spiritual recognition happens gradually, as consciousness slowly shifts from human awareness to spiritual understanding over time. Learn to trust the process completely, even when changes seem slow, subtle, or barely noticeable in the beginning stages of practice. Each single moment of authentic spiritual recognition builds healing consciousness within you, regardless of whether you can see immediate evidence of this building process happening in your outer circumstances. Some healings and transformations happen instantly and dramatically. Others unfold gradually over weeks, months, or even years as consciousness deepens and spiritual recognition becomes more natural and consistent. The timing isn't what's important. The recognition itself is what matters most, because each recognition contributes to your developing consciousness. Don't make the mistake of judging your progress or the effectiveness of your practice by comparing your results to other people's experiences or dramatic stories you've heard. Your spiritual recognition is perfect for your unique circumstances, consciousness level, and individual journey. Focus completely on the recognition itself rather than measuring its effects, controlling its timing, or demanding specific evidence that it's working according to your human expectations and timetable. Joel consistently emphasized that spiritual recognition isn't a mental exercise, intellectual concept, or thinking process. It's a fundamental shift in being and consciousness that comes from your spiritual nature rather than your human mind. You don't think your way into authentic recognition through mental effort. You allow recognition to emerge naturally from your spiritual understanding and identity. When practicing recognition feels forced, mechanical, or like hard work, you're trying too hard from your human mind rather than allowing your spiritual nature to express its inherent knowledge. Real recognition happens naturally and effortlessly when you quiet your human thinking and allow spiritual awareness to emerge from the silence within you. This isn't a passive process. It's actively receptive to spiritual truth and understanding. The difference is subtle but absolutely crucial for effective practice. Mental recognition is your human mind trying to be spiritual through effort and willpower. Spiritual recognition is your divine nature expressing its inherent knowledge of perfection without any struggle or strain. Learn to distinguish clearly between these two completely different approaches, and consistently practice the latter rather than the former. Mental effort actually interferes with spiritual recognition by keeping you focused on human concepts rather than spiritual reality. True recognition emerges from silence, stillness, and receptivity to what your spiritual nature already knows about perfection, wholeness, and truth that exists beyond all human appearances and limitations. The greatest challenge in applying Joel's method consistently is maintaining spiritual recognition when appearances seem overwhelmingly negative, convincing, and impossible to see beyond. Your cancer diagnosis, financial crisis, relationship breakdown, or other serious problems can make spiritual perfection seem not just difficult to accept, but completely unrealistic and even insulting to your intelligence. Joel faced this exact same challenge throughout his ministry and discovered that appearances, no matter how convincing or dramatic, are never the complete truth about any situation. What looks absolutely hopeless from a human perspective often becomes the doorway to the greatest spiritual breakthrough and recognition of truth. Your darkest moment can catalyze your most profound recognition of spiritual light and possibility. This is where genuine spiritual recognition proves its authenticity and power. Anyone can recognize perfection when things are going well and circumstances look positive. The real test is recognizing spiritual truth when every appearance contradicts it completely. This recognition in the face of contrary evidence demonstrates authentic spiritual understanding rather than wishful thinking. Practice recognizing spiritual perfection, especially when appearances most strongly contradict it, and when doing so seems most difficult or unrealistic. This isn't denial of what's happening or pretending problems don't exist. It's seeing beyond surface appearances to spiritual reality that always exists, regardless of temporary circumstances. If these challenge-breaking techniques speak to your heart, like to support this content, subscribe for advanced spiritual practices, and comment. Which obstacle are you ready to transform now? Advanced practitioners of Joel's method learn to maintain constant spiritual recognition while being fully engaged in daily responsibilities, work demands, family obligations, and social interactions. You don't need to withdraw from the world, avoid human activities, or live in isolation to practice Joel's method effectively. You transform the world by bringing spiritual recognition to everything you do. Whether you're working at your job, parenting your children, shopping for groceries, attending social events, or handling any other normal human activity, you can maintain continuous awareness of the spiritual reality that underlies all interactions and experiences. See your coworkers, family members, friends, and complete strangers as spiritual beings expressing perfect divine nature. This recognition continues regardless of their behavior, attitude, appearance, or how they treat you or others. You're not recognizing their human personality or actions. You're recognizing their spiritual identity that exists beyond all human characteristics and behaviors. This practice gradually becomes second nature through consistent application. This constant recognition becomes completely natural and automatic with dedicated practice over time. You learn to live continuously from spiritual consciousness while fully participating in all normal human activities and responsibilities. This integration of spiritual recognition with practical living is exactly how Joel maintained his extraordinary healing ability while teaching around the world, managing a busy ministry, traveling extensively, and handling all the ordinary human responsibilities that everyone faces in daily life. Joel discovered that spiritual recognition works most powerfully when applied to humanity's collective challenges and global problems rather than focusing only on personal concerns. Instead of being overwhelmed, depressed, or frightened by world conditions, you can contribute significantly to global healing by recognizing spiritual perfection on a universal scale that includes all humanity. When confronted with disturbing news of war, widespread disease, poverty, environmental destruction, political conflict, or social injustice, practice recognizing the spiritual truth about all humanity rather than being consumed by fear, anger, or despair about world conditions. See beyond appearances of conflict, suffering, and limitation to the underlying unity and spiritual perfection of all beings. This isn't ignoring real human problems or being indifferent to suffering. It's contributing to solutions through spiritual recognition rather than adding to problems through fear and negativity. Your recognition of global spiritual perfection contributes to world healing in ways you may never see directly but are absolutely real and effective. Joel taught that enough people consistently practicing this universal recognition could literally transform civilization itself through the power of collective spiritual awareness and consciousness. Your individual recognition matters not just for your personal life, but as part of the growing spiritual consciousness that has the potential to heal humanity's deepest problems and conflicts through recognition of our fundamental spiritual unity and perfection. Long-term, consistent practice of Joel's method gradually develops what he called the healing consciousness, a permanent state of spiritual recognition that operates automatically in all situations without having to consciously remember to practice. You no longer have to make effort to recognize spiritual truth. Recognition becomes your natural, effortless way of perceiving everything and everyone. This developed consciousness doesn't eliminate human challenges, problems, or difficult circumstances from your experience. but it completely transforms your relationship to them. Problems become opportunities for deeper recognition and spiritual growth. Difficulties become doorways to greater spiritual understanding and demonstration. Your entire life becomes a natural demonstration of spiritual principles without effort or strain. Developing this level of healing consciousness requires consistent practice over months and years, not days or weeks. But every single moment of recognition contributes to building this consciousness, regardless of how small or insignificant it might seem. Trust the process completely and maintain daily practice regardless of immediate results or evidence. This isn't about perfection in practice. It's about consistency and sincerity in recognition. Some days your recognition will feel clear and powerful. Other days it might feel weak or mechanical. Both are normal parts of developing consciousness. What matters is continuing the practice regardless of how you feel about it or how effective it seems to be working in any particular moment or situation. Joel's most advanced students learn to live entirely from spiritual recognition rather than human reaction in all circumstances and relationships. They responded to every situation from conscious awareness of spiritual perfection rather than automatic reaction to appearances, problems, or challenging circumstances. This represents the highest level of practical spiritual living and demonstration. This doesn't mean becoming passive, uninvolved, or indifferent to practical affairs and human responsibilities. It means bringing spiritual wisdom and recognition to all human activities and decisions. You take appropriate, practical human action guided by spiritual recognition rather than being driven by fear, anger, desperation, or other emotional reactions to circumstances. Living from healing consciousness means that your first response to any situation is spiritual recognition, followed by appropriate human action as guided by spiritual wisdom rather than emotional reaction. This transforms not only your own experience, but naturally impacts everyone around you in positive ways without any conscious effort on your part. Others instinctively sense the peace, confidence, and spiritual authority that naturally comes from living in spiritual recognition rather than human reaction. Your very presence becomes a healing influence that helps others remember their own spiritual nature and possibilities. This influence operates automatically through your consciousness without any deliberate attempt to help, heal, or change other people through personal effort or intention. The ultimate understanding in Joel's teaching is that healing and wholeness are not achievements, attainments, or results of practice, but rather recognitions of what eternally exists as spiritual reality regardless of any human circumstances or appearances. You don't become whole, perfect, or healed through practice. You recognize the wholeness, perfection, and healing that you have always been as your spiritual identity. This recognition completely transforms your entire relationship to life, problems, goals, and spiritual practice itself. You stop trying to get, achieve, become, or attain anything through human effort or spiritual techniques. Instead, you consistently recognize what you already are spiritually and allow that recognition to express itself naturally through your human experience. From this recognition comes complete freedom from fear, lack, limitation, and all forms of human suffering. This doesn't mean these experiences cannot occur in your human life. It means you know with absolute certainty that they cannot touch, damage, or affect your true spiritual identity and nature in any way. You become permanently established in spiritual wholeness as your fundamental identity, rather than seeing it as something you're trying to achieve or maintain through practice. This is spiritual freedom in the truest sense, not freedom from human experience, but freedom within human experience through recognition of your eternal spiritual nature that remains forever perfect regardless of any temporary circumstances or challenges you might face. Joel's extraordinary legacy proves conclusively that every human being can develop healing consciousness through consistent spiritual recognition, regardless of their background, education, religious training, or previous spiritual experience. This healing ability isn't a special gift reserved for a chosen few with unique talents. It's the natural state of consciousness for anyone genuinely willing to see beyond appearances to spiritual truth. Your personal healing journey begins right now with recognizing your spiritual identity at this very moment, not at some future time when you think you'll be ready or worthy. You don't need to wait until you understand more, practice longer, study extensively, or somehow become more spiritually developed or deserving of healing and transformation. Spiritual perfection is your present reality right now, patiently waiting to be acknowledged and recognized regardless of any human condition, limitation, or challenge you might currently be facing. This recognition is available to you immediately without any prerequisites, qualifications, or preparation beyond sincere willingness to see truth. Start exactly where you are today with whatever challenges, problems, or circumstances you're currently facing in your life. Practice consistently recognizing spiritual perfection in the midst of apparent imperfection and limitation. Let this recognition guide your thoughts, decisions, actions, and responses to all situations. Trust this process completely, knowing that your sincere recognition has the power to transform any condition through the same spiritual law that worked through Joel throughout his remarkable ministry. The world desperately needs people who can see beyond human appearances to spiritual reality in these challenging times of global uncertainty, conflict, and apparent limitation. Your personal development of healing consciousness contributes directly to humanity's spiritual evolution and awakening. Every moment of authentic recognition helps awaken others to their spiritual potential, possibilities, and inherent capacity for healing and transformation. You are not practicing spiritual recognition just for your own personal benefit and healing, but for the healing and awakening of the entire world and all humanity. Your consistent recognition that all beings are spiritually perfect helps create the collective consciousness necessary for global transformation, lasting peace, and the end of human suffering on a planetary scale. This is both your spiritual calling and your greatest privilege as a conscious spiritual being living at this crucial time in human history. Joel showed the way through his life and teaching, but each person must walk the path of recognition for themselves. No one can do this for you, but you can do it for yourself and contribute to everyone else through your consciousness. Your individual spiritual journey matters not only to your own life and circumstances, but to everyone whose life you touch directly or indirectly through your elevated consciousness and spiritual recognition. You are part of the spiritual solution to humanity's problems through your willingness to see truth where others see only limitation, fear, and conflict. Joel Goldsmith's greatest and most important teaching is that you already possess everything necessary for complete healing and total transformation right now, at this very moment. The same spiritual power that facilitated extraordinary healing through Joel's consciousness operates through your consciousness right now. Recognition of this truth is all that's needed to begin your own healing ministry and spiritual demonstration. Completely trust what you've learned about spiritual recognition through these teachings. Apply these principles consistently in your daily experience with faith and dedication. Share this understanding with others who are ready to see beyond human appearances to spiritual truth and possibility. Live from this recognition rather than human limitation and fear. Your life can become a powerful demonstration of Joel's teaching that anyone can facilitate healing through spiritual recognition when practiced with sincerity, consistency, and complete trust in spiritual truth. The same consciousness that worked seeming miracles through Joel is your consciousness expressing its infinite nature, wisdom, and healing power through your unique human experience and circumstances. Begin today. Begin right now. Let spiritual recognition become your natural way of seeing, thinking, and living. Trust this process completely, knowing that every moment of recognition contributes to your healing consciousness and the healing of the world through the eternal spiritual truth that is your real identity and nature. If your spiritual understanding expanded through these Joel Goldsmith secrets, like this video, subscribe for more transformative teachings, and comment, "I am transformed," to confirm your new path.